Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing before the committee. I'm also glad that we're here to emphasize the overwhelming differences in outcomes that early childhood interventions can create. And I want to start by saying Americans are hardworking. I really take offense to the narrative that some are trying to frame Americans as somehow not hardworking. This last 2 years has shown that the American people are resilient, they don't give up, they overcome great obstacles, and they are focused on returning to work. I represent Nevada's 4th congressional district, which was one of the most hard-hit sectors with hospitality, tourism, and my folks are going back to work. But unfortunately, childcare is one of the barriers that many people, particularly women and families, indicate they need more affordable, quality childcare. I haven't heard a whole lot of emphasis around what we need to have around quality. So I would like to talk about how these are investments. We spent a lot of time on how much expenditures are being made. Childcare is an investment. And yeah, I voted for the American Rescue Plan because it supported funding for essential support, including childcare. Now, when the Republicans were in charge and the former administration was in charge, they chose to give tax cuts to the very wealthy. That was their choice. Our choice was to invest in the American people during a pandemic. Dr. Hoynes, you made the case better than anyone that we see benefits not only paid back over the long term, but they are paid back to society with significant interest. Child poverty affects all of us regardless of our income. Even by conservative efforts, we are leaving $800 billion a year of economic activity on the table by allowing children to continue to languish below the poverty line. So since you discussed how the expanded child tax credit more than pays for itself in increased economic activity, including to the private sector, that was money that was reinvested back into local small businesses, which we desperately support. Would you be able to explain how some of the non-direct costs society incurs by not dealing with child poverty, such as lower potential future earnings or shortened life expectancy?
Thank you for that question. So we know that providing more resources when children are young translates to a broad set of improvements in adulthood. And I think the key across the studies, there's one outcome that shows up in almost every study, and that is human capital, educational attainment. And educational attainment is like the turnkey to getting higher earnings in the labor market, which has, of course, direct effects on the family, on the child, but as you point out, pays back returns to the society at large. Higher earnings mean more tax payments. Higher earnings mean less transfer payments. And so there's very direct effects that show improvements for the child and the family, but also important dividends, if you will, that pays back to the society in the long run. And I think really the one thing that we see very consistently is human capital.
Human capital, investing in the human needs that all of us have, and childcare is one of those needs. Now, in 2020, the adult to child ratio in Nevada preschools was 1 to 15, which means our teachers have to look after 50% more children than what is recommended. This includes many of our brave service members who are stationed in my district. This story is far too common. Just ask some of the local constituents in Tonopah, Nevada, where the situation has become so dire that they have no remaining licensed childcare providers. It's one of the reasons that I submitted a community project funding for a child development center in that rural community. Mr. Malik, could you discuss how childcare deserts are detrimental to child development and what resources could be made available to reduce the prevalence of childcare deserts?
Yes, thank you, Congressman. Childcare deserts are unfortunately ubiquitous throughout this country. The number one source of revenue for a childcare business or childcare provider is parental fees. And that kind of limits what you can pay your teachers based on what are safe and appropriate, developmentally appropriate ratios of teachers to children. It is not safe to have one teacher trying to watch over 10 or 12 toddlers. If you've ever been around 3 toddlers, you know that that's pushing it. So what we need are the result is lower and middle income communities are vastly undersupplied in the types of the variety of childcare options that we want to see. We want families to have lots of choices, have lots of ways to meet their preferences and to find quality options. And unfortunately, as I said in my opening statement, the numbers don't work for childcare in America. We need some kind of public investment for something that many people consider a public good in the way that we talk about public education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know my time has expired. That's the type of investment I'm willing to make. I wish my colleagues would do the same.